It's a mega week of new releases with Metroidvanias, shoot-em-ups, gorgeous pixel art titles, roguelikes, tactical games and more, so let's begin with Claire a la Mode. An arcade style 2D action platformer from developer Color Grief, who continues to impress with their pixel art. You play as Claire, a determined baker competing in a high-stakes worldwide bake-off and must go up against Bee the Queen and fend off her decadent lackeys from rigging the competition and buying out the rest of the city. Dash, jump and dodge traps as you clear minigames, complete boss battles, recruit new bakers and discover hidden ingredients, complete various missions in 3 unique campaigns, and as you progress, you unlock new characters, adding replayability since you can tackle challenges in different ways. A highway spectacle racing game built on chaos, momentum and ruthless competition is Speed Demons 2, a high-octane side-scrolling arcade racer. Play as a member of the Demons, a reckless gang obsessed with velocity, or join the Enforcers, vigilante drivers determined to bring the demons down. Every race immediately throws you into the thick of the action as you dash through heavy traffic, ram rivals, narrowly escape collisions, and attempt to complete high-stakes objectives. There are over 70 vehicles, 10 gameplay modes, and hundreds of races, along with sweet cel-shaded graphics and 3 chase camera angles, offering a whole bunch of content and looks awesome. This video is brought to you by Island Market Simulator, a first-person strategy and economy simulation game where you have to build a trade empire on an island starting from a small market stand, produce goods via farming and raising livestock, but also manage supply chains, set up market stalls, attract customers, and expand your business over the changing seasons and weather. Over time, you unlock new product categories, scale up operations with machines and workshops, handle storage and logistics, and respond to changing customer demands, having to manage your inventory and stock levels, while also taking advantage of festivals to move as much product as possible. Rags to riches stories like this are always fun as you get to see the evolution from your humble store and doing everything by hand, evolving into something so much larger, which is very satisfying. So if interested, wishlist the game on Steam and look forward to the release in Q1 2026. Fatal Claw is an atmospheric 2D Metroidvania built around exploration, mutation, and skill-based combat. You play as Kisha, a resurrected cat, journeying through a complex underworld filled with infected creatures and sealed chambers. Each region feeds into the next through branching tunnels and hidden routes, creating a non-linear map filled with secrets and alternate paths. The game looks inspired by Hollow Knight and is visually impressive, although it will be an early access release, something I find unusual for a Metroidvania due to its inherent design, but has worked in the past with titles like Ender Lilies. You can absorb abilities from enemies, letting you expand Kisha's movement, attack options and traversal skills, letting you explore the world. Combat is dynamic and demands timing, adaptability, and smart use of your abilities, using them strategically to counter enemy attacks, then dodging out of the way just in time to avoid getting damaged, and looks like a pretty promising one of these. The next title from the developer of Olia is Forestrike, a thrilling tactical martial arts roguelite brawler. As a masterful martial artist, you embarks on a perilous mission to free the Emperor from the grasp of a corrupt admiral. You will constantly have to battle the Admiral's vicious followers in intense fistfights, where defeat ends your run, forcing you to plan and execute each move carefully. Using the game's signature foresight mechanic, you can rehearse fights in a safe mental simulation, testing positioning, parries, and combos before the real battle. Success requires both skill and strategy, adapting to enemies, exploiting the environment, and mastering the timing of attacks and counters. Along the way, you meet 5 masters who will teach you martial arts techniques, expanding your arsenal of moves in combat for every attempt as you figure out your ideal play style. Between fights, you gradually uncover pieces of a larger story as you travel through the world, also having detailed pixel art with handcrafted animations, and does look very good. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. Possibly the next big roguelite is Monsters Are Coming Rock and Road, a fast-moving, cartoony tower survivor roguelite mixing tower defense with Vampire Survivors-style enemy swarms where you control an entire city that rules across hostile territory. In this world, every mile forward brings new threats, with hordes surging from the darkness, collapsing roads, and bosses big enough to split your city in half. You control a lone peon, having to frantically forage and gather wood, stone and gold for upgrades, but also build and upgrade your city and engage in combat to defend yourself, having to wander off the beaten path to find secrets and powerful upgrades, but be sure to get back to your city in time to help with the defense. To protect the city, build archery outposts, necromancer towers, and even fire-breathing dragons, along with new districts and upgrades based on the needs of every run. Your decisions shape how the city grows, how it fights, and how well it survives the perilous journey towards the distant Arch, a legendary landmark that serves as the ultimate goal of your expedition. There is meta progression in between runs, so you can unlock new classes and build possibilities, offering a bunch of replay value. Smaller games begin with Abra-Cooking-Dabra, a whimsical cooking card game where you're thrown into the role of Wonderland's newest chef. After stumbling on a lucky email just in time to avoid missing your restaurant opening deadline in London, you get transported to Wonderland's mobile cafe where a smug cat becomes your boss. Manage ingredients and tools with your deck of cards, juggling the different timers while you prepare dishes for the eccentric locals like Toves, Borogolfs and Momraths, which are nonsense names for creatures taken from Lewis Carroll's poem. Each customer has different tastes, and they tend to interfere with your cooking at the worst possible moments. There are special customers that act as bosses, and you can also upgrade your deck of cards to improve your ingredients and tools, letting you experiment and create different recipes on the more than 25 levels that this game has to offer. The developer Door407 previously made Diplomacy is Not an Option, a real-time strategy game with a focus on combat on a massive scale, so it's a big surprise to see them change directions and produce this light-hearted cooking game. This game does also remind me a lot of Sizzle and Stack, another indie with a combination of card-based mechanics and frantic cooking challenge, which is pretty good, so if you enjoyed that, perhaps give this a look. As I Began to Dream is a hand-drawn puzzle platformer where you follow Lily, a young girl who awakens in a strange limbo shaped by her own memories and emotions, navigating grief and loss by exploring these subconscious landscapes. Lily has the ability to reshape the world around her, so you can swap, rotate, and move different parts of the environment to open new paths and advance through each area. Besides using these powers, you also need to do some platforming to solve the different puzzles, with gorgeous art all made by hand, which perfectly fits the personal and emotional narrative. A narrative-driven incremental game releasing in early access is Asbury Pines. In this game, you'll guide the lives of an array of characters across 12 eras to unravel a grisly murder that has shaped the town for centuries. Starting in the present, the game quickly goes backwards and forwards in time, taking you to the late Stone Age all the way into the far future. Assign different tasks, gather resources, upgrade skills, and build automated production loops that link the different eras together, turning simple tasks into evolving engines that work even while you're not playing the game. Each new era unlocks more characters with unique stats, personalities, and backstories, and as the characters age, work, and discover artifacts, their stories combine into a massive web of clues that gradually exposes what really happened. The game leans heavily into world building with hundreds of illustrated documents, wildlife encounters, personal histories, and pieces of lore connecting one era to the next. The narrative is linked to the incremental mechanics, so all the upgrades and automation chains will push the investigation forward, with the heavy emphasis on the narrative and world building being an interesting approach that you rarely see in this genre of idle incremental games. Astroneer is still one of the current biggest survival crafting games, so it's no surprise that they are making DLC, the latest of which is Astroneer Megatech, an expansion focused entirely on letting players build massive megastructures that push base building and automation to a whole new scale. Mega structures are a new level of base building, each one having their own identity and gameplay perks. To make them, launch construction anchors from the space catapult and gather resources for the mega drone that will assemble them piece by piece. There are 5 new mega structures, 2 of which are free and the 3 will be in the DLC, with these ranging from a distribution launcher to kick off mega builds, a biodome that automates flora production and lets you build bio huts, an orbital platform for creating massive space bases, a museum where you can display collections of rare items and track your ongoing contributions, as well as an intermodal terminal, which is your personal shipping hub in the solar system. This DLC also comes with a big free update to owners of the base game, which adds new items, icon signs for your bases, and elevated walkways, making this feel like a natural evolution of Astroneer's gameplay, and I hope to see even more content in the future. I have a soft spot for shoot 'em ups, so BIRDCAGE immediately grabbed my attention, a fast-paced vertical scrolling arcade shooter that mixes the explosive style of 90s classics with a modern story twist. You pilot Halcyon, an experimental gunship equipped with a wide shot, a focus shot, and a sword that acts as both your strongest offensive weapon and your main defensive option, letting you slice through bullets and enemies in such a satisfying way. The game unfolds in a divergent sci-fi future where humanity has split into 2 factions, one living on the moon and the remains of Earth, and the other in a space colony. In this setting, we have a narrative inspired by games like Metal Gear Solid, with futuristic weaponry, political and military conflict, and psychological themes about the human subconscious. Story mode takes you across 6 stages, packed with mini-bosses, screen-filling main bosses, and narrative interludes that pull you deeper into the mystery of the world egg and your awakening inside the space colony named Cage. This game also has an arcade mode that strips out the story for quicker scoring runs, and a score attack mode that throws you into a time gauntlet of endless enemies to sharpen your skills. It also has an early 3D and late 90s anime visual style with sprite scaling, pre-rendered backgrounds, and limited textures, giving it a heavy retro future vibe. Combined with a 90s inspired soundtrack and retro style voice acting, this really feels like a love letter to that era of shoot 'em ups. Brush Burial Gutter World is a murky first-person immersive sim where you play as Fennel, a devil flung far from home, scraping together a living on the grimy frontier edges of a strange world, navigating tangled vertical levels and mastering a combat style built entirely around your forked tail. Using this tail, you can tie up enemies, climb impossible heights, and pull off quick takedowns as you slip through the levels in search of contracts to complete. You can choose how to approach each scenario, since every combat encounter is fully avoidable and the game design lets you solve problems however you want, whether that means sneaking past guards, stealing weapons, using improvised tools from the environment, or just rushing in with the brutal melee combat. Levels are tightly interconnected with multiple paths to the objectives, and they're full of hostile and friendly NPCs who will react to your actions, so even if the game only has 4 levels, they're extremely replayable and encourage a lot of experimentation. You'll also unlock dozens of cosmetics by completing different gameplay challenges, and while the game might not look the most visually impressive, it will certainly be a treat to fans of the genre and is the hidden gem of the week. Can't Stop Rory is a cozy farming game with a twist, where peaceful days of planting and decorating your little homestead are constantly interrupted by nights filled with danger as the unfed rise to tear down everything that you have built. You play as Rory, a stubborn farmer with a soft heart working off a government debt by supplying food to the survivors of a bright post-apocalyptic world. The gameplay during daytime is all about cozy farming, so grow crops, sell your harvest, and expand your tiny patch of land to unlock new crops, mechanics, and decorations. When night falls, the game shifts as waves of the unfed break through walls and structures, forcing you to build barricades, traps, turrets, and even hop in a powerful mech to defend your farm. Later on, you'll be able to automate the daily grind by building farming and watering robots that plant and harvest for you, letting you focus on larger goals like the layout of your defensive mechanisms and decorating your farm, repairing broken defenses and machines is handled through quick mini-games, keeping the downtime light and engaging. You also take on missions from Ivy, a government agent who monitors your progress and helps you strengthen the homestead. Mixing the farming genre with tower defense is an innovative idea, and I hope this game can execute it right. A nostalgic helicopter shooter is Cleared Hot, which leans heavily into physics-driven combat, letting you sling, drag, smash, and improvise your way through a full single-player campaign. Fly one of 8 playable helicopters, each with customizable loadouts, and use momentum, timing, and quick reactions to shoot enemies, dodge missiles, and reposition your squad across the battlefield. The standout mechanic here is the rope and magnet system, which lets you pick up and flail around anything that isn't bolted down, like vehicles, enemies, rocks, and even incoming heat-seeking missiles. Toss a tank into an enemy base, redirect a missile mid-air, or grab an unlucky soldier and send them flying. The physics makes everything feel unpredictable in a fun way, encouraging experimentation to come up with funny solutions to tactical problems. Your squad also plays a key role, since you'll be transporting them between objectives, dropping them into contested zones, or setting them up to hold a defensive line, all while trying not to accidentally get them into the stratosphere. Missions take place across desert, jungle, and arctic biomes, with day-night variants and a wide roster of enemy vehicles like boats, anti-air turrets, fighter jets, and tanks. It's all very fast, very chaotic, and feels like a modern spin on classic helicopter arcade shooters, but with way more physics-driven personality. Factory automation titles are pretty popular, and Cubetory is a factory building game purely about automation, where you construct an ever-growing production network on a tiny island with extremely limited space and scarce resources. Everything you make in this world is a cube, and every cube eventually ends up in the pit, starting with simple mine blocks that you paint in specific patterns before scaling up into increasingly complex multi-step production chains. Place drills, conveyor belts, launchers, stampers, power stations, and all sorts of specialized machinery as you tweak, refine, and reorganize your layout to squeeze every drop of efficiency out of the limited space on the island. New ore patches are scarce and unique, so each discovery becomes a small puzzle where you need to design a clean layout, avoid bottlenecks, and meet the production requirements to unlock the next set of upgrades. Progress expands the island, unlocking new technologies and reveals more advanced resources, gradually turning a small starter layout into a dense web of conveyors and assembly lines. This game has no enemies, no time limits, and no pressure beyond the satisfaction of building a perfectly optimized machine, making it ideal for players who love the puzzle-solving side of factory games without the stress. Cursed Companions is a chaotic co-op horror game where the biggest threats are the words coming out of your mouth. Explore procedurally generated dungeons where everything responds to your voices, where the right words can heal teammates, disarm traps, or scare away the monsters, or the wrong ones can alert enemies, trigger hazards, and make things worse. And every player is cursed with a forbidden word that instantly harms them if they say it. A lot of fun comes from trying to communicate with your friends through the mic while avoiding common words like okay or behind just in case they are cursed. The game leans into the absurdity, with over 20 monsters that you must deal with in different ways. For example, swearing in front of the foul mouth will make him attack you, while you can get rid of the bride by throwing her an embarrassing pickup line. Besides standard co-op dungeon runs, there are boss stages, a challenge mode, an endless mode, and even a traitor mode, where someone is secretly sabotaging the mission, similar to Among Us. It also has unlockable skins by completing achievements, a customizable home base and equipment you can buy, like teleport stones, ice wands, and stink potions that help you survive for longer on your runs, looking like an interesting entry in this sub-genre. Desert Race Adventures is a retro-inspired rally strategy management game where you manage your crew, your vehicle, and your supplies as you drive across Europe and Africa, with roguelite mechanics that shape every playthrough. Pick your driving team, pack the essentials, and head out towards the desert, keeping an eye on your fuel, food, and spare parts while deciding on how to tackle the unpredictable events that pop up along the way. Make quick decisions as the bad weather, wild animals, and bandits forces you to choose between risky shortcuts or safer, slower alternatives. The The game keeps things relaxed even when the stakes are high, with no pressure to race at high speed, just focusing on steady planning and keeping your engine running long enough to reach the next checkpoint. Different driver combinations and branching event outcomes means that no two journeys plays out the same way, encouraging experimentation as you try new strategies to survive the harsher stretches of terrain. The world is presented in a really well done isometric pixel art style, with what seems to be extra attention on the menus and icons looking pretty eye-catching and is for fans of pixel art. A medieval fantasy game that mixes many genres is Dungeons and Kingdoms, a hybrid of kingdom building, management simulator and third-person RPG, letting you run a growing settlement by day and clearing dangerous ruins by night. You play as the leader of a small group of refugees, fleeing an unlivable homeland and landing in a new world where you need to build everything from scratch, either by placing every piece yourself or by laying down blueprints for your colonists to do it for you. Gather resources, farm, hunt, craft tools, and construct shelters, while your villagers deal with dynamic day-night cycles and seasonal changes. As the settlement grows, you unlock a modular building system with over 100 structural pieces, letting you mix, match and design unique homes, workshops and fortifications, or even create your own blueprints to share on the Steam Workshop. Terraforming also plays a big role, as you can flatten land for farming, make trenches, raise platforms for new districts, and shape the environment exactly how you want it. Outside the city walls, the third-person RPG combat lets you fight wild animals and raiders to protect your people and secure new territory. And when you're ready for greater challenges, you can descend into the dungeons below, filled with monsters, puzzles, and bosses that will reward you with rare resources and upgrades. The game also has a creative mode if you want to skip these mechanics and simply build the fantasy kingdom of your dreams, really offering quite the mix of gameplay experiences. Duskpunk is a dice-driven RPG set in the smog-choked steampunk city of Dredgeport, where you play as an ex-soldier who was mistaken for dead, shipped home for processing, and barely escaped with your life. The city is collapsing under corruption, gang violence, and the horror of burning war corpses for fuel, and now you're stuck in its underbelly with only your life and your sanity. Inspired by tabletop RPGs and graphic adventures, it uses a mix of dice rolls, resource management, and branching story choices to make every decision tense and impactful. You have to manage your health, energy, and stress while taking whatever work you can find, upgrading your skills to survive in the city, and choosing which characters will be your allies. As you explore the districts, take on jobs and build alliances, your choices will affect the future of the entire city, altering the story of the game, having some resemblance to Citizen Sleeper but in a very different setting. Goat Simulator 3 is still releasing new content, with the latest being the Baadlands Furry Road DLC, which throws you into the heart of a Mad Max-like wasteland on what remains of San Angora Island. This DLC features a customizable motorcycle to roam through the dunes, post-apocalyptic rival factions, a full town that you can build or destroy, and many satirical references to franchises like Borderlands, Fallout, and Mad Max. The DLC also features a new currency, vehicles, playable goats, gear, and a lot of new quests and achievements, with the very well-established franchise having a penchant for physics-driven mayhem and looks to be a worthy addition. Green Ember Helmer in the Dragon Tomb is a dungeon crawler set in the world of the best-selling Green Ember series of books. You play as Helmer, a young rabbit determined to reclaim his family farm by fighting his way out of a dangerous underground tomb. Backed by thousands of Kickstarter supporters and written by the same authors of the books, this game brings the Green Ember universe into an action-adventure format packed with stealth, exploration, and combat. Sneak past patrolling guards or take them head-on with your fists, sword swings, and environmental takedowns, hitting enemies with whatever the dungeon gives you. Face monsters and boss fights, all while uncovering the mysterious forces pulling the strings behind your imprisonment. The Dragon Tomb itself is full of puzzles, with classic mechanics like pushing boxes, pulling levers, and doing some platforming to advance. Exploration comes from hunting for hidden treasures or rescuing prisoners from the dungeon, with the game mechanics looking simple enough so fans of the books who are not used to playing video games might still want to give this a try. Another game with a successful Kickstarter is Kero Cowboy, a cartoony western-themed platformer built to look and run like a real Game Boy Color game, with Kickstarter backers even getting a ROM version to play on emulators or hardware like the Analog Pocket. You play as Kero, a frog sheriff in training, on a mission to track down the Wild West's most dangerous outlaws across deserts, mines, forests, mountains, and even runaway trains. This game mixes old-school platforming with a fun toolkit of abilities. Use your extendable tongue to grab enemies, eating them and spitting them back out, or pull out a giant 6-shooter revolver for long-range duels where you must make the limited 6 shots count. The levels also introduce different mechanics like swimming sections, minecart rides, a massive cowboy boot to stomp enemies, or spicy food that makes your frog breathe fire. And through the 25 levels and 5 boss fights, the game delivers an authentic Game Boy Color feel with the pixel art, simple controls, and the chiptune soundtrack, with special collectibles that uncover bonus challenge levels if you're looking for something tougher as well. Kriophobia is a third-person psychological survival horror game set in a frozen Soviet bunker where you play as Anna, a young geophysicist whose expedition to a remote island goes horribly wrong after a series of magnetic anomalies trap the crew underground. With limited resources and lethal temperatures closing in, Anna must survive the harsh weather, escape the grotesque creatures lurking in the dark, and face disturbing visions tied to the past, navigate tight corridors and abandoned facilities through the fixed camera angles, solve environmental puzzles, and decide whether to fight or avoid enemies entirely. Since combat is intense, resources are scarce, and it's often best to run from the monsters. Inspired by survival horror classics like Silent Hill and Haunting Ground, there is a little bit of slow psychological tension, symbolic imagery, and atmosphere-heavy storytelling rather than jump scares. The art style stands out as well and is quite unique, with a spooky Slavic-inspired soundtrack and graphics that mix comic-style inking with painted textures, and will be for fans of the genre. Long Drive North Co-op RV Simulator is releasing in early access this week and is an immersive driving survival game placing you in a post-disaster American wilderness where your RV is both your shelter and your lifeline. The game takes inspiration from other indie titles like The Long Dark and The Long Drive, mixing mechanics from different genres. Get hands-on to repair the engine, refill the tank, replace worn-out parts, and gradually upgrade components to keep the mortal home chugging along through brutal weather and long stretches of empty road. Survival systems add in another layer of gameplay, with hunger, thirst, and exhaustion pushing you to scavenge abandoned buildings, strip wrecked cars for parts, hunt wildlife with a rifle, and cook meals to stay alive. Exploration takes place both on foot and behind the wheel as you travel through a ruined open world filled with decaying structures, quiet forested areas, and a recurring storm that you want to avoid at all costs. This is playable in single player, but also has co-op for up to 4 players. So if you love co-op titles like Are We There Yet, but want something a little bit more serious and survival gamey, then this will be of note. Military Incremental Complex is an active incremental game about building your own military-industrial complex from nothing, expanding it into a global money-printing empire as you automate factories, control supply chains, play the stock market, and lobby the governments to keep the cash flowing. Start from the very bottom, crafting bullets by hand, and slowly upgrade to machines, then purchase full factories as your production expands into guns, tanks, aircraft, missiles, and eventually high-end doomsday weapons. Each of the 11 armaments is assembled in a different way, but over time, you'll automate every step of the process so you can focus on the broader strategy. The game leans heavily into R&D, with more than 120 upgrades for things like pricing, efficiency, new products, UI improvements, or global resource extraction, while managing different materials and building a supply chain that spans mines, refineries, and manufacturing plants. You can jump into the stock market to buy into public companies to earn dividends and powerful production bonuses, with politics also playing a major role as lobbyists can weaken regulations, boost government demand for your stuff, or reshape entire gameplay systems depending on which path you pursue. Once your profits get absurd, you can prestige for more than 35 permanent abilities to keep for future runs, and looks like a very in-depth incremental game with plenty of content. Neon Inferno is a stylish hybrid of side-scrolling run-and-gun action platformer with a gallery shooter set in the cyberpunk New York City in the year 2055. And immediately stands out due to its great pixel art, which comes as no surprise since the developer previously made Steel Assault, another 2D action platformer which looks absolutely fantastic. Choose from two playable characters who are assassins working for the Family, a crime syndicate fighting for control of the city. Deflect bullets back at enemy using a bullet time parry, and even hop into vehicles to chase down targets across the futuristic streets. Each mission throws you into dense urban battlefields, where enemies attack from both the foreground and background, with some gallery shooting parts that resembles the style of Sunset Riders. Each level ends in a unique boss fight, with multiple phases that will push you to master both the close quarters combat and gallery shooting gunfights. It offers multiple weapons and upgrades, and has a co-op mode so you can play with a friend. There's also an arcade mode where you have to finish the game with a single credit, and is definitely one of the better looking pixel art games of 2025. News Tower just launched its full 1.0 release after a strong early access run, already doing extremely well with over 2,400 reviews as of recording, making it one of the standout management sims of the year. This game puts you in charge of a newspaper in 1930s New York, starting from an empty floor and gradually expanding into a towering building filled with printing presses, editorial desks, legal offices, and all the machinery needed to get an issue out every Sunday. Layout management matters a lot, as the placement of elevators, tubes, and workstations directly affects the efficiency, while break rooms, decorations, and little comforts keep staff morale from collapsing under pressure. Manage more than 30 job roles, from reporters and photographers to janitors and ad salespeople, each with needs, traits, and specialties that determine how well your paper runs. Choose which stories to pursue, shape the editorial angle, and match your tone to public expectations, and try to publish stories that boost sales without attracting lawsuits or the wrong kind of attention. The city is under the influence of major factions like the Mayor, the Mafia, and the new military faction added for the 1.0 release, each of which offering deals that can help or compromise your paper depending on how far you're willing to bend the truth. As you expand into different districts, you'll be introduced to new readers and rival newspapers competing for scoops, with the full launch adding a whole bunch of content that should make this even better. Organized Inside is a slow-paced, life organizing game where you're tasked with tidying up a cluttered home, discovering meaning and growth through methodical space organization. There are over 1,000 familiar everyday items to sort, along with a cute cat which you can pet as you tidy and sort, and just make everything so pleasant and neat. The game has an emphasis on cozy, non-pressure gameplay since it has no timers, health bars, or scoreboards. Rather, as you clean and rearrange, you gradually learn more about the stories of 5 characters, most likely told through the stuff that they have, being very similar to unpacking, but with a cute cat, of course. Speaking of cats, Princess of the Water Lilies is a gorgeous hand-drawn 2D puzzle platformer where you play as an adventurous little cat raised by a family of frogs, exploring a beautiful world inspired by classic animated movies from the 70s through the 90s. Game mechanics revolve around a magical collar gifted to you by your frog family, a charm that releases energy whenever you purr, transforming the environment in many creative ways. Make plants bloom, bridges grow, and vines stretch across gaps to unlock new paths for you. As you progress, the collar unlocks new abilities that deepen both the platforming and the puzzle solving, letting you swing across vines, manipulate water, or reveal hidden passages scattered across the world. The story is told in a minimalistic way, mostly through visual symbols and emojis, making the experience accessible to kids and players of any language. Each chapter ends with a boss encounter that pushes you to combine everything that you have learned, with the standout factor certainly being the visual style. Want even more cats? How about Replicat, a roguelite memory deck builder that takes the simple idea of memory matching cards and changes it into a wild, rule-breaking strategy game packed with charismatic felines. Instead of flipping tiles and hoping for a lucky pair, every run is a puzzle with stacking effects, bending mechanics, and crafting combos that let you bend the rules in many satisfying ways. Build a deck from over 90 cards split across 5 colors, where each card introduces twists, like keeping cards permanently revealed, matching mismatched cards, triggering chain reactions, manipulating the turn order, or unleashing jokers that rewrite the board entirely. There's a lot of experimentation and synergies to be done, with more than 80 unique collectibles that change the rules of play, plus 5 essence categories offering upgrade paths that shape your build into different styles. Adapt your strategy as your deck grows stronger, stranger, and less predictable to advance through the increasingly difficult levels, with unique boss stages that impose their own modifiers. There are also 10 starter decks, which gives you different ideas on how to play the game, all wrapped up in a funky, jazzy aesthetic, and seems to be the Balatro of memory matching, so this could be huge. The not-so-indie Risk of Rain 2 continues to be one of the most played action roguelites, where the original developer sold the IP to Gearbox and themselves went to Valve, but the Alloy Collective DLC is of note if you love this game. This pushes you deeper into Soulless territory with new content and a reworked endgame, adding 6 new stages, including scrapyards, mining outposts, industrial fortresses, and buried machine caverns, each designed with dynamic layouts, vertical exploration, and environmental hazards. 2 new survivors flesh out the roster, including the Drifter from Risk of Rain returns, and a new operator character that focuses on the use of drones, adding even more replay value. More enemies and a new endgame boss fight are also included, and as always, only one person in the lobby needs to own the DLC for everyone to be able to experience the stages, monster, and loot, looking like a substantial batch of content, so let's hope that this turns out better than the launch of Seekers of the Storm. S.E.M.I side effects may include: it's a cooperative action escape game for 1 to 4 players set inside a bizarre medical facility. Begin each run as a patient in a special clinic and navigate randomly generated rooms filled with traps, changing gravity, moving walls, and hostile staff while gathering experimental drugs that grant you superpowers, but also unpredictable side effects. Swing objects and unleash physics-based mayhem while using wild abilities such as shrinking, growing, or becoming invulnerable, using these in an attempt to outwit the facility's guards and puzzles to reach your freedom. Between rooms, locate vending machines and use collected candies to purchase more pills, unlocking costumes and cosmetic customization options. The game currently offers 25 levels, 12 abilities, 12 side effects, and a handful of puzzles and trap types, with more content including new locations, enemies, alternative modes, and enhanced meta progression planned to be added over early access. Sektori is an intense arcade-style twin-stick shooter that merges fast-paced action with a pulsing techno soundtrack and neon visuals. Sharpen your reflexes as you pilot your ship through shifting arenas, unleashing rapid fire and special maneuvers, dodging swarms of enemies, and facing off against evolving bosses. There are a number of ships to choose from in various upgrade decks, so you can tune your ship to your preferred style, with multiple difficulty modes and alternate game modes providing replay value. The campaign spans 5 distinct worlds with dynamic levels that challenge skill rather than rote memorization, with how the enemies spawn in, with the abstract visual style certainly reminding me of Geometry Wars. This developer also used to work at Housemarque, makers of games like Resogun, so you can see a similar kind of fast-paced arcade influence in this game, which looks like a trip. A very creepy title that kind of grosses me out is Side Effects, a turn-based strategy game, for lack of a better term, designed around the concept of pill roulette, where each capsule could heal, harm, or instantly end the experiment. Each round presents you with a selection of pills, and players choose one without knowing its true effects, where winning means outlasting all the other players. Between turns, items and resistances can be managed to offset negative impacts or amplify beneficial ones, while the tension climbs as fewer players remain alive in the trial. It is similar to Buckshot Roulette in that you're playing against other players with a little bit of a social deduction element as well. But I have to say, the character designs are some of the freakiest that I have seen, but based on the concept and idea, I have a feeling that this could be huge. I'm always interested in RTS games since I grew up with the genre, so a very sci-fi StarCraft looking one of these is StarSim BattleZone, being a full-fledged entry in the genre where you command an army, build bases, gather resources, research new technologies, and train units as part of a war effort. This will feature both a campaign with story-driven missions and a skirmish mode, again very similar to the classics, where the story revolves around a faction known as the Home Escalate and its conflict with the others. Actually, come to think of it, the more I look at it, the more I think that this is knockoff StarCraft, having minerals and what looks like Vespene gas as the resources, as well as a population cap mechanic, also appearing to have largely Terran-looking factions with tanks and mechs without the Protoss or Zerg equivalents, so I don't know about this one, but if you're a fan of the genre, maybe this might be interesting. Storebound is a 1-to-3 player cooperative horror game set deep inside an accursed megastore, where the owls trap shoppers and the staff hunt them. Explore the store, solve environmental puzzles, and search for items and clues. Then, when the lights go out, the real danger begins, as patrolling employees enforce closing time, so flashlights and hiding places become essential. The store itself warps into a liminal nightmare where things are not what they seem, so working with your team is key if you want to survive. Use proximity voice chat or walkie-talkies to coordinate your escape, splitting up to scour the store more quickly, or stick together for safety in numbers. While there is single player support, this is probably best with friends and will be an early access release with more chapters, new characters, extended storylines, and increased challenge modes as development continues, where developer Embers made Murky Divers, which is a big hit in this space as well. Stuck Together is a 2-player cooperative rage game framed as a physics-based climbing platformer where 2 toys have been chopped in half and literally stuck together, who must escape from the attic of their evil owner. Each player controls the top half of a toy and must coordinate swinging, jumping, grabbing, and climbing through the house filled with hazards, traps, and increasingly unfair level design. It is a rage game since as you grapple with difficult obstacles, the momentum-based movement and controls themselves, a missed jump or mistimed swing means that you are tumbling back to the floor, losing minutes of progress. The setting evokes 90s nostalgia with the retro objects and toys, and just when you think you have mastered the controls, you might just get smacked down by the hand of your owner, definitely looking like it will make you very angry. Developer BTF is known for their adventure game Troublebrook, although they're also making the upcoming Metroidvania Constance, which is out next week. But first, they're putting out The Berlin Apartment, an intriguing narrative adventure game taking place within one single apartment, but over the course of 100 years. So how's that for an interesting storytelling device? In the current day, it tells the tale of a young girl named Lara who joins her father Malik as he renovates an old flat, and while they repaint walls, patch floors, and remove old fixtures, they uncover relics and traces belonging to the apartment's past tenants, which prompts episodic stories set in different periods of time. And of course, this apartment is in Berlin, which naturally leads me to think of either World War or Cold War era Germany, which could have interesting implications. From the developer of Chinatown Detective Agency comes The Diner at the End of the Galaxy, a management simulation tycoon game where you revive an abandoned trading outpost on a desert planet and turn it into a bustling intergalactic diner. Plant and grow exotic crops in the outdoor gardens, craft a menu tailored to alien tastes by using 50+ recipes, design kitchens and dining halls to optimize rush hour service, hire staff and dispatch expeditions to distant worlds for rare ingredients, all as you attempt to build your establishment. There are different factions to deal with, and building positive relationships earns you faction points, which can be used to request a visit from their traders, buy special objects, build special rooms, or you can even get them to invade a region of the galaxy. This adds a strategic diplomatic layer to the core business loop, which I wasn't expecting, and you can see an evolution of their pixel art as well, with the spaceships in particular looking great. Wrack Reclamation was formerly known as Wrack Remake, an upgraded version of a game from 2014, which I remember coming across back in the day and stood out mostly due to the art style, with the rebrand probably being due to the fact that this is not just a 1:1 remake, but does also add new content. This is an intense first-person shooter clearly rooted in the boomer shooter tradition of games like Doom and Quake, so expect fast-paced action in terms of movement and shooting. Players rip through hordes of aliens and robots, chaining kills to build up streaks that fuel hyper-blast attacks, while leaping and sliding around arenas since that will keep you alive. There's a large arsenal of weapons to discover, each with alt-fire modes, with the kill streak system pushing the action, culminating in boss fights against massive enemies, and will be for fans of the genre. This next title has interesting inspiration since Wrack defined Ascent as a tactical auto-battler in a dark medieval setting, where 1v1 duels meets roguelite backpack management mechanics. Yes, indeed, this takes inspiration from backpack battles, but is created in Unreal Engine 5, hence the fancy visuals, where you choose your playable character and fill their backpack with equipment, accessories, and move cards, which can be fused to craft unique combinations and clever counterplays that determine the outcome of combat. If backpack battles is anything to go by, the position of items relative to the other items will affect how effective they are, triggering combos and synergies, which amplify your attacks. Matches span up to 10 battles in a session, each letting you refine your build and climb the leaderboards, with, I believe, asymmetric multiplayer, since every enemy that you face was actually created by a player at some point in time. I don't believe there's any direct control of the action, rather it's all predicated on equipment and selected moves, but the different classes should provide plenty of variety and I suppose has more appeal than the cartoony look of its inspiration. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. After a little bit of a delay, we also have the release of Moonlighter 2 The Endless Vault, a game that people like to call a roguelite, but I personally don't think so, since the permanence of your shop makes it more like an action-adventure game with procedurally generated dungeons. This is the follow-up to an indie darling, where the familiar loop of dungeon crawling and shopkeeping returns in a vibrant new setting. Dive into procedurally generated dungeons to slay enemies, gather relics and loot, then return home to man your shop, set prices, haggle with customers, and reinvest in your town. The action should be great given the developer's history, but is now in full 3D instead of pixel art, which is a shame, but I can understand their reasons for doing so. Use melee and ranged weapons, gadgets, and even manage your backpack, combined with the loop of returning to town to sell items to get upgrades to delve even deeper for better loot, and you can see why the first game got its hooks deep in me and might be one of the best games of the year. I love monster taming elements in games, so combine that with an action roguelite and you have my attention, where Morsels delivers exactly that, a fast-paced creature collecting roguelite where you can switch between a rotating roster of mutant characters at will. You start as a hungry mouse, scavenging in the sewers, only to meet a sentient magical fat bug that grants you the power to transform into mighty little morsels. You can freely swap between a rotating roster of captured morsels, each endowed with unique abilities, while exploring and fighting enemies, and uncovering hidden bonus levels with distinct art styles and surprise mechanics. With over 20 distinct morsels to collect and tame, you investigate their different synergies and exploit these combinations to take on even tougher monsters. The pixel art style is eye-catching, even if the CRT filter isn't my favorite, and the monster designs look delightfully weird and wild, being part of the charm that makes this game stand out. After a slight delay, the long-awaited release of Demonschool has finally arrived. This tactical RPG blends school life mechanics with supernatural combat in a style reminiscent of the Persona series. but replacing traditional JRPG battles with grid-based tactics while preserving the time management structure of campus life. You step into the shoes of Faye, a freshman born into a lineage of demon hunters, who finds herself in conflict with interdimensional creatures as the boundary between the human world and demon realm fades. Combat is the highlight, since you must strategically position party members, plan actions carefully, and combine buffs, debuffs, and elemental synergies for maximum effect. Watch the more in-depth tutorial from the developers to get a better idea of the combat, where characters placed near enemies will trigger attacks when the active character strikes, paving the way for inventive combo sequences. Outside of combat, the school calendar drives the gameplay as you plan your semester schedule, train skills, accept side missions, and deepen bonds with classmates, where deeper relationships unlock team-based attacks and new party strategies. Visually, the game draws from a blend of pixel art, hand-drawn visuals, and 3D models, with its horror-tinged, otherworldly aesthetic giving strong vibes of Shin Megami Tensei. Berserk B.I.T.S is an idle RPG auto-battler that runs quietly in the background on your desktop, where you train and customize a digital companion known as a BIT, or Battle Intelligent Teammate, to tackle viruses, explore biomes, and uncover the mystery behind cyber attacks across the net. You build a deck of battle chips to power up your BIT, and send them on missions while you're away, and occasionally intervene to choose upgrades and chips to fine-tune their progress. The game draws inspiration from the Mega Man Battle Network series and nostalgic handheld virtual pet devices, combining chip collecting and deck building with idle progression. It also has a campaign mode, side missions, and boss fights to give more structure to what might otherwise be a simple idle experience, and the developer plans long-term support with new chips, game modes, and additional companions post-launch. One of my most anticipated games is Kingdoms of the Dump, where I have a video from August 2018 covering this very game, so it has been a very long time in development. This looks like a long-lost SNES title and follows in the footsteps of games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy, being a classic turn-based JRPG set in the 5.5 Kingdoms of the Dump within the lands of Phil, a world where trash plays a central role in everything from character designs to the very environment itself. You step into the boots of Dustin Binsley, the trash can knight, who must gather the realm to face the foul, toxic Kremlin army and prevent all-out war. The gameplay features turn-based, grid-based combat with timed button inputs, and where overworld exploration involves swapping between lead characters to use their unique abilities, plus jumping and platforming. The handcrafted pixel art looks great and does also have a Mode 7 style world map, where the two lead developers actually worked as janitors, so you could say that they're designing from their area of expertise. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.